which is really where the fights are going to be happening now, is at this expansion. This undead player says, listen, I got a food advantage now, or at least I just want to fight. I have 60 food compared to 50 food. I mean, obviously he doesn't know that, but he can kind of assume that the orc player, since he still has expansion, is going to be able to fortify his army. I think he waited way too long to make this push happen here. He had the orc player was able to get another 10 food of army to try to help him defend in the time that this undead player was just sitting in his base waiting to make that decision. So the wolf scouted out the undead player. The undead player is like, okay, the orc player knows I'm on the way. I got to be ready for this fight happening here. A lot of bats here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 bats here. Really bad positioning here. One bat's going to destroy our suicide, but is not going to kill off the fiend. Another bat gets web. So using that Frost Nova and web, was able to pick off 2 bats there and not taking any losses. Definitely a good move. The more bats you can pick off without them actually detonating on your destroyers is the good move here. Also, you'll see that he's using coil early on that destroyer, so he has it ready for a fresh cooldown, and his mana can continually regenerate. If he's at full mana, his mana is obviously not regenerating. So let's check food counts again before this big fight happens. 65 to 60, so now we're kind of even, but we do have Tri-Hero for the Undead, so that's definitely a good move. Level 3 Coil and level 2 Frost Nova, really, really good. Hex immediately off on that Death Knight, really just as a confusing tactic. Doesn't want the... once he uses those, destroys all his bats on his destroyers, he didn't want the Death Knight to be able to coil too many. Fortunately, Death Knight's gonna, there's a lot of, if you're holding alt right now, there were 2 red HP destroyers that are actually gonna get saved by coil here. So, actually I think he just coiled the wrong target on accident. I'll have to check a look at that again maybe sometime. But still, just hexing that Death Knight early on kind of was meant to cause confusion, but he wasn't able to kind of seal the deal. And he's actually, the orc player is going to lose the majority of his army here. And then it's going to look for the most part that this undead player has got the game won. So Death Knight really, really low on HP here. He should have pulled the Dota here and ran all the way back to his base here. It's really, really risky, especially since he's gone for Unholy Aura. So he's got level 3 Coil and level 2 Unholy Aura. Had he opted for Death Pact, he could have left his Death Knight here in the fight a little bit. Maybe used that on a weak fiend after coiling it. Good, almost half HP now on a destroyer, but now all this orc player needs to do is come in here and do a seemingly suicide attack, but he brought his wolves in there to get a few crits off on that Death Knight and was able to kill it off now. Now tables have kind of turned. Losing that Death Knight is huge. The undead player had this game won, had he been able to keep that undead, or that Death Knight alive, I believe. He's going to be able to finish off this expansion with 3 destroyers here, but the orc player still has a good amount of air army. Actually, I don't know if he has yet. Let's check the gold. No, he's got a good amount of gold saved up. He's going to refortify his air army. He's going to build a few wyverns and I think another... yeah, and he's going for some more bats. So this is looking kind of bad for the orc player at this point, but he has the money to kind of refortify his army and still be a matchup for this. It's 35 food army now versus 30. I don't know if the orc player actually knows the food counts in this situation, but it's still really a close game here, especially since this undead player is not going to opt to try to push him at this point. He's going to allow him to spend that 700 gold on this on refortifying his army, and now that's really risky because the undead player still hasn't started his expansion up. He did bring his acolytes along for that last fight and actually lost all but one of them. He only has 1 acolyte left, the undead player I'm talking about, and only has he had 60 gold now. He's unsummoning some ziggurats at his base to try to get a little bit more gold so he can start his expansion. Had he lost that acolyte, he might not have been able to create any more acolytes out of his Black Citadel, and he would have been completely screwed on resources. So this is kind of some bad late game decisions here by this undead player, which is really costing him the game here. Orc player's like, okay, I don't know exactly what's going on. I'm scouting out with my wolves everywhere. I want to make sure that my undead opponent does not have an expansion, because that's really the only threat to him right now. Is if that undead player gets an expansion up and running, he's going to have a full gold mine's worth of time to try to take out and refortify his army and take out my main base, is what the orc player's thinking here. So he sees, okay, there's no expansion there. No acolytes there either. This undead player is actually hiding his acolytes near that his last acolyte near that mercenary camp. And gets really, really lucky here. If this orc player scouts out this acolyte, it's pretty much all over there. The undead player only has 81 gold. I think an acolyte costs 75 gold, so he might be able to remake another one. He is trying to resurrect his Death Knight here, but the orc player scouted that out. He's bringing all his units in there to try to finish it off. So this game was pretty much over at like the 25-minute mark. So we got another 3 minutes of me just jabbering on. I believe that last fight pretty much sealed the deal, and a few late game decisions by this Undead player is just going to now, it's this Orc player kind of cleaning house here to try to finish it. So you can watch the rest of this replay if you want. I'm probably not going to talk about the actual action that's happening or anything that I might notice. I'm going to go over my notes and see if I can make any, reiterate any more points for you, or you guys can just go ahead and fast forward the rest to see who wins. Actually, I'll just spoil it for you. The Orc player wins. So there you go. It's spoiled. Let's see some notes I wanted to go over here. I guess if I won't go over and read all of my notes, because I actually have like 2 pages of stuff I wrote about this replay. And see, at the first, when I first watched this replay, I didn't really expect there to be much to talk about. Like, I was like, okay, it's just going to be a regular Joe Smo replay. There isn't going to be a lot of interesting micro or interesting tactics or anything like that. But I actually watched this replay like 5 and 6 times before I started taking notes on it. And I was like, hey, this is definitely something that is interesting and can make a good point about the Orc and Undead matchup. So hopefully you guys feel the same way after listening to this thing. After this audio commentary. Oh man, just interesting watching them chase down these 2 Orc heroes and 1 Coda that's almost died. But yeah, the other point I wanted to reiterate is the whole Lich choice in as far as ability is concerned. As an Undead player, again, I'm not an Undead player, so if you guys are Undead players and want to comment to me on that thing I said, go ahead and leave your comments about it here in the audio commentary section on the front page of WC Replays. Let me know what you guys think about going Frost Armor first on your Lich, because I know there's a lot of pros that do it and are very successful with it. And I think if we're talking cookie cutter and we're talking, what's the most effective thing to do at a certain point in the game, when your Lich is coming out, you're going to be up against Ensnare. I mean, so that is I think that's the quintessential Undead counter to it at that point in the game. So definitely, if I was an Undead player, I would opt for Frost Armor first, and then try to get my Lich as quickly as possible, obviously, to level 2, because Frost Nova is so effective. Some interesting notes about that is they don't actually stack. It's the same effect, the Nova effect from the Frost Nova, the cold effect that provides is also a slowing movement and attacking speed, but those don't stack together. So if you Frost Nova something and it's hitting something that has Frost Armor on it, it's going to take the same effect, which is, I had it written down here, is 25%. I'm going to make the notes here. Shoot, where did my notes go? I think it's a 25% movement speed. Oh, here we go. It's 50% movement speed and 25% attack speed. So definitely a really awesome consideration. Just that cold effect. I mean, really think about it. I mean, when you're on Undead player, that's kind of the quintessential part of them, is that they're all about the cold. They got the Ziggurats that can be upgraded, to the Frost Towers, and their Black Citadel, or actually their tier 2 building actually has a frost attack. So really take advantage of that cold and that slow movement speed. It's all about kind of nerfing your opponent's abilities, as it were, kind of hexing them and making them, their units and their heroes, unable to do things while you have the big DPS. I mean, you don't have big meat units, so I mean, you're not going to be able to tank as well, so you need to do this hit, and that's why hit and run is so effective as Undead. So hope you guys enjoyed the audio commentary. I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye.